Lisa Thompson stared at her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror, trying to convince herself that the dark circles under her eyes weren't that noticeable. At 28, she felt like she had aged 10 years in the past 6 months alone. Her blonde hair, once her pride, now hung limp around her shoulders because she couldn't afford the salon visits she used to enjoy. She applied a thin layer of drugstore concealer and told herself it would have to do. From the living room, she could hear her 6-year-old son Danny chattering away to his action figures, creating elaborate stories about superheroes saving the day. The sound made her smile despite her exhaustion. Danny was the light of her life, but being a single mom was harder than she had ever imagined when she made the difficult decision to leave his father 2 years ago. Her phone buzzed on the counter, a text from her best friend Kate. "Remember dinner tonight at 7. You promised you wouldn't back out this time." Lisa groaned and closed her eyes. She had completely forgotten about the dinner Kate had been pushing for weeks. It wasn't just any dinner either. Kate had somehow convinced her to go on a blind date, something Lisa had sworn she would never do. The last thing she needed in her chaotic life was the complication of dating. She walked into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator, staring at the nearly empty shelves. A half-gallon of milk, some leftover mac and cheese from 3 nights ago, and a package of hot dogs that would probably last them through the weekend. Her paycheck from the diner wouldn't come until Friday, and her second job cleaning offices only paid monthly. Danny appeared in the doorway, still in his pajamas despite it being almost noon. His dark hair stuck up in all directions, and he was clutching his favorite stuffed dinosaur. "Mommy, are we having pancakes today?" he asked hopefully. They had pancakes every Saturday when times were better, but the pancake mix box had been empty for 2 weeks now. "How about hot dogs instead, buddy?" Lisa said, forcing cheerfulness into her voice. "We can make them special with some cheese." Danny's face lit up. At 6, he was still young enough to find joy in simple things, and Lisa was grateful for that innocence. She worried constantly about what he was missing out on because of their financial struggles. Other kids in his class talked about trips to amusement parks and new toys, while Danny made do with hand-me-downs and free activities at the local library. As she prepared lunch, Lisa's mind wandered to the evening ahead. Kate had been mysterious about this mystery man, only saying he was successful and really nice. Lisa had learned to be suspicious of setups. The last guy Kate had introduced her to turned out to be her cousin who still lived with his mother and collected vintage comic books in plastic sleeves. But Kate meant well. She had been Lisa's rock through the divorce, the job hunting, the late-night crying sessions when the bills piled up faster than Lisa could pay them. Kate was one of the few people who knew how hard Lisa worked just to keep their small apartment and put food on the table. Lisa worked at Murphy's Diner from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., serving coffee and eggs to construction workers and early commuters. The pay was barely above minimum wage, but the tips helped, especially on good days. After picking up Danny from school, she would often take him to the library where he could play quietly while she applied for better jobs on the public computers. 3 evenings a week. After Danny went to bed, she cleaned offices downtown. Her neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, a sweet elderly woman who lived alone, would watch Danny for a few dollars and some company. It wasn't ideal, but it was the only way Lisa could manage both jobs and still be there for her son. The worst part wasn't the exhaustion or even the money stress. It was the loneliness. Lisa had lost most of her friends during the divorce. Some took sides, others just drifted away when her life became complicated. Dating seemed impossible when she barely had time to sleep, let alone get to know someone new. But Kate kept pushing. "You deserve happiness," she would say. "Danny deserves to see his mom happy too." Lisa knew Kate was right in theory, but the reality felt overwhelming. How could she explain to some stranger that her idea of a perfect Friday night was falling asleep on the couch watching cartoons with her son? After lunch, Lisa called her regular babysitter, Mrs. Chen, an elderly woman who had been watching kids in the neighborhood for decades. Mrs. Chen was affordable and trustworthy, 2 qualities that were hard to find. "I'm so sorry, dear," Mrs. Chen said, her voice weak and congested. "I woke up with this terrible cold. I don't want to risk getting little Danny sick." Lisa's heart sank. She called the backup babysitter, a teenager from down the hall, but the girl was at a family birthday party. The daycare center Danny attended was closed on weekends, and Lisa couldn't afford the $20 an hour professional services Kate sometimes used. She sat on her small couch, staring at her phone. She could call Kate and cancel, but Kate had been so excited about this setup. She had even bought Lisa a new lipstick as an early birthday present, saying every woman deserved to feel beautiful once in a while. Danny climbed onto the couch beside her, sensing her mood with the intuition that children sometimes have. "Are you sad, Mommy?" he asked, curling up against her side. "Just thinking, baby," Lisa said, stroking his hair. "How would you feel about going to a restaurant tonight? A fancy one where they bring you food on real plates?" Danny's eyes widened. They usually ate at home or occasionally splurged on fast food. A real restaurant was a rare treat. "Can I wear my good shirt?" he asked. "The blue one with the buttons?" Lisa felt her chest tighten. Here was her 6-year-old son, getting excited about wearing his one decent shirt to what would probably be the most embarrassing evening of her life. But looking at his hopeful face, she realized she didn't have much choice. "Yes, you can wear your blue shirt," she said. "But you have to promise to be really good and quiet, okay?" As the afternoon wore on, Lisa found herself growing more nervous. She tried on 3 different outfits before settling on a simple black dress she had worn to job interviews. It was nothing fancy, but it was clean and wrinkle-free. She helped Danny with his shirt and attempted to tame his wild hair with some water in her comb. Looking at their reflection in the hallway mirror before leaving, Lisa felt a mix of pride and anxiety. They looked presentable, but she knew they were about to walk into a situation that was far from normal. She just hoped this mysterious man Kate had chosen would be understanding when a single mom showed up to their date with a first grader in tow. The bus ride to downtown took 25 minutes, and with every passing block, Lisa felt her stomach twist tighter. Danny pressed his face against the window, pointing out buildings and cars with the excitement of a child who rarely got to venture beyond their neighborhood. His innocent joy only made Lisa feel worse about what they were walking into. "Look, Mommy, that building touches the clouds," Danny said, his breath fogging up the window. Lisa managed to smile, but her mind was racing. What kind of first impression was she about to make? She imagined walking into some elegant restaurant with her 6-year-old son, trying to explain to a complete stranger why she had brought a child to what was supposed to be a romantic dinner. The whole situation felt like a disaster waiting to happen. She checked her phone for the 3rd time. 6:45. They were already running late, and she still had a 10-minute walk from the bus stop. Kate had texted the restaurant address that morning along with an excited message about how perfect this guy was for Lisa. "Trust me," Kate had written. "He's different from the others." Lisa hoped Kate was right, but her past experiences with blind dates had taught her to keep expectations low. There was the guy who spent the entire evening talking about his ex-girlfriend. Another one who asked her to split the check on a $12 meal. And then there was the man who seemed nice until he mentioned that he wasn't really looking for anything serious because he was still figuring himself out at 35 years old. The bus lurched to a stop, and Lisa gathered their things. Danny had insisted on bringing his small backpack filled with coloring books, crayons, and his favorite toy dinosaur. Lisa had packed it hoping it would keep him quietly occupied if needed, though she worried about how it would look in an upscale restaurant. "This is our stop, buddy," she said, helping Danny down the steep bus steps. The restaurant district was bustling with Saturday evening crowds. Well-dressed couples walked hand in hand toward various establishments, and Lisa suddenly felt very aware of how different she and Danny looked compared to everyone else. Her black dress was nice enough, but it was clearly from a discount store. Danny's blue button-up shirt was clean and pressed, but it was obviously too big for him. A hand-me-down from Kate's older nephew. "Mommy, my tummy feels funny," Danny said as they walked. "Are you hungry?" Lisa asked, though she suspected his stomach was reacting to her own nervousness. Kids picked up on emotions more than adults realized. "Maybe a little," Danny said, taking her hand. "Will they have chicken nuggets?" Lisa's heart clenched. Chicken nuggets were Danny's favorite food, but she doubted this type of restaurant would have anything so simple on their menu. She made a mental note to ask the waiter about kid-friendly options, assuming they made it that far into the evening. They stopped in front of Bella Vista, an Italian restaurant with soft lighting glowing through large windows. Lisa could see elegantly set tables, waiters in crisp white shirts, and couples engaged in intimate conversations over wine glasses. This was definitely not the kind of place where children typically dined. It's fancy, Danny whispered, his eyes wide as he took in the scene. Remember what we talked about, Lisa said, kneeling down to his level. We need to use our inside voices and stay in our seats, okay? Danny nodded solemnly, understanding that this was important to his mother even if he didn't fully grasp why. Lisa took a deep breath and pushed open the heavy glass door. The hostess, a young woman with perfect makeup and an expensive-looking dress, looked up with a practiced smile that faltered slightly when she noticed Danny. "Good evening," the hostess said. "Do you have a reservation?" "Yes, under—" Lisa realized she didn't know the man's last name. "I'm meeting someone here. A tall man, probably already seated?" She felt her cheeks burning. How did she not know his name? "Are you Lisa?" asked a warm voice behind her. Lisa turned around and found herself looking at a man who was definitely not what she had expected. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with kind brown eyes and a gentle smile. He wore a navy blue suit that probably cost more than Lisa made in a month. But there was nothing intimidating about his presence. If anything, he looked as nervous as she felt. "Yes, I'm Lisa," she said, her voice coming out smaller than intended. "And this is my son, Danny." The man's eyes shifted to Danny, and Lisa braced herself for the disappointment or confusion she was sure would follow. Instead, his smile grew wider. "Hi there, Danny," he said, extending his hand for a handshake. "I'm James." Danny looked up at his mother for permission, then shook James's hand with the seriousness of a business meeting. "You have a very firm handshake," James said to Danny, which made the boy beam with pride. Lisa felt like she needed to explain, to apologize, to somehow make this less awkward than it already was. The words tumbled out in a rush. "I am so sorry about this. My babysitter got sick at the last minute, and I couldn't find anyone else, and I know this is supposed to be a date, and bringing a 6-year-old is probably the last thing you expected, and we can totally leave if you want to reschedule, and I promise this isn't how I normally handle things. And, Lisa," James said gently, interrupting her rambling. "It's okay, really," but Lisa couldn't stop herself. The stress of the day, the embarrassment of the situation, and months of barely keeping everything together came pouring out. "I tried everything," she continued. "I called everyone I could think of, but it's Saturday night and everyone has plans. And I know Kate probably told you I was normal, but this is my life right now. And I understand if you want to just forget this whole thing happened." She was vaguely aware that other diners were starting to look in their direction. The hostess was pretending to be busy with her reservation book, but Lisa could tell she was listening to every word. Danny had moved closer to her side, sensing that something was wrong even though he didn't understand what. "Mommy," Danny whispered, tugging on her dress. "Are we in trouble?" The innocent question from her son made Lisa realize how she must look, frazzled, desperate, and completely out of place. She felt tears threatening to form and blinked them back quickly. This was exactly why she had stopped trying to date. Her life was too complicated, too messy for someone else to understand. James had been quiet during her entire outburst, just listening with a patient expression. When she finally stopped talking, he looked down at Danny, then back at her. "Can I make a suggestion?" he asked quietly. Lisa nodded, not trusting her voice. "How about we get seated and order some food? I don't know about you two, but I'm starving." The simplicity of his response caught Lisa off guard. No judgment, no irritation, no polite excuses about having to leave early. Just a calm suggestion to continue with the evening as if bringing a child to a blind date was the most natural thing in the world. The hostess led them to a corner table near a large window that looked out onto the busy street. Lisa expected to be seated at some tiny table in the back, the kind of spot restaurants usually reserved for awkward situations. Instead, they were given one of the nicer tables with plenty of space and a good view. James pulled out Lisa's chair for her, then did the same for Danny. The little boy looked amazed that someone would do such a thing for him. At home, he usually climbed into chairs by himself or needed his mother's help. "Thank you, Mr. James," Danny said politely, settling into his seat with his backpack on his lap. "Just James is fine," he said with a smile, then turned to Lisa. "Kate told me you were special, but she didn't mention you came as a package deal." Lisa tensed, waiting for the polite but disappointed comment that would inevitably follow. Something like, "Maybe we can try this another time when you don't have your son." Instead, James continued, "I think that makes this evening even better." Lisa stared at him. trying to figure out if he was just being polite or if he actually meant it. In her experience, most men ran when they discovered she had a child. The few who stuck around usually tolerated Danny at best, treating him like an obstacle to overcome rather than a part of her life to embrace. The waiter appeared with menus and a booster seat for Danny, which James had quietly requested while Lisa was getting settled. The waiter seemed completely unfazed by the family setup, treating them like any other group of diners. "Do you have anything that's not too fancy?" Lisa asked quietly, scanning the menu. Everything seemed to have descriptions in Italian or French, and the prices made her stomach clench. "Actually," James said, "I have a confession. I was hoping we could order pizza. I know it's probably not what you expected at a place like this, but they make the best pizza in the city here." Danny's head popped up from his coloring book. "Did someone say pizza?" James laughed. "I take it you're a pizza fan?" "It's my second favorite food," Danny announced seriously. "Chicken nuggets are first, but pizza is really good too." "A man with excellent taste," James said, nodding approvingly. "What kind of pizza do you like?" "Let me guess. Pepperoni?" "How did you know?" Danny asked, his eyes wide with amazement. "Lucky guess," James said with a wink. "Pepperoni was my favorite when I was your age too." Lisa watched this exchange in growing amazement. James wasn't just tolerating Danny's presence. He was actively engaging with him, talking to him like he was a real person rather than an annoying interruption. Most adults either ignored Danny completely or talked to him in that fake, overly sweet voice people used with children they didn't really want to deal with. "Are you really a businessman?" Danny asked, putting down his crayon to give James his full attention. "I am," James said. "I work with computers and help companies solve problems." "Cool," Danny said. "My mom works at the diner and she serves coffee to people." "Do you drink coffee?" "Every morning," James said. "Coffee is very important for grown-ups. It helps us wake up and think clearly." "Mommy drinks lots of coffee," Danny said matter-of-factly. "Sometimes she drinks it at night too when she's working on her computer." Lisa felt her cheeks redden. She didn't want James to know about her late-night job searches and bill-paying sessions that required caffeine to stay awake. "Your mom works very hard," James said, looking at Lisa with something that might have been respect. "That's admirable." The waiter returned to take their order. James suggested they share a large pepperoni pizza and a Caesar salad, then asked Danny if he wanted something to drink. "Can I have a Coke?" Danny asked hopefully, looking at his mother. Lisa hesitated. Danny rarely got soda, and she wasn't sure if it was appropriate to let him have one in such a nice restaurant. "One Coke coming up," James said before Lisa could respond. "And what would you like to drink, Lisa?" "Just water is fine," she said quickly. She had looked at the drink prices and decided she couldn't justify spending $12 on a glass of wine. "Actually, could we get a bottle of that Chianti you recommended last time I was here?" James asked the waiter. "And a water for the lady as well." After the waiter left, James turned his attention back to Danny, who was working on a picture of a dinosaur in his coloring book. "That's a great T-Rex," James said, leaning over to get a better look. "Is that your favorite dinosaur?" "Actually, it's a velociraptor," Danny corrected politely. "T-Rex is bigger, but velociraptors were smarter. They hunted in packs and could open doors." James looked genuinely impressed. "How do you know so much about dinosaurs?" "Mommy takes me to the library and I read all the dinosaur books," Danny explained. "Did you know that some dinosaurs had feathers? They didn't all look like the ones in movies." "I did not know that," James said, and Lisa could tell he was genuinely interested, not just pretending. "What else did you learn?" For the next 10 minutes, Danny regaled James with dinosaur facts while Lisa sat in stunned silence. She couldn't remember the last time an adult had shown such genuine interest in her son's passions. Even her own family members usually nodded politely when Danny started talking about dinosaurs, then changed the subject as quickly as possible. When their drinks arrived, James raised his wine glass. "I'd like to propose a toast," he said, "to new friends and unexpected evenings." Danny raised his Coke with great seriousness, and Lisa lifted her water glass, still not quite believing how the evening was unfolding. "To new friends," Danny repeated solemnly, then took a big sip of his soda and giggled at the bubbles. "So, Lisa," James said, turning his attention to her, "Kate mentioned you work at Murphy's Diner. I've driven past there but never stopped in. What's it like?" Lisa was surprised he wanted to know about her work. Most people either pitied her for working at a diner or assumed it meant she was uneducated or lazy. "It's actually not bad," she said carefully. "The customers are mostly regulars, construction workers and people heading to work early. They're good people and the tips help a lot." "I bet you're great with customers," James said. "You have a way of making people feel comfortable." Lisa almost laughed at that. She certainly hadn't felt comfortable tonight, and she doubted she was making anyone else feel at ease either. "Mommy makes the best coffee," Danny chimed in. "Even better than the coffee shop down the street." "High praise," James said to Lisa. "Maybe I'll have to stop by sometime and try it." The pizza arrived, and James helped Danny get his first slice, cutting it into smaller pieces without being asked. He seemed to naturally know what a 6-year-old would need, anticipating things like extra napkins and making sure Danny's drink was within easy reach. As they ate, the conversation flowed more easily than Lisa had expected. James asked thoughtful questions about her life, without making her feel like she was being interviewed or judged. When Danny spilled a little pizza sauce on his shirt, James just handed him a napkin and kept talking as if nothing had happened. For the first time in months, Lisa found herself relaxing. Not completely. She was still aware that this was a strange situation and that James was probably just being polite. But there was something genuine about his interest in both her and Danny that made her want to believe this might actually be real. As they finished their pizza, Danny became more animated, telling James about his school and his favorite teacher, Mrs. Patterson, who let him share dinosaur facts during show and tell. Lisa found herself actually enjoying the conversation instead of constantly worrying about what James was thinking. "Do you have any kids?" Danny asked suddenly. The kind of direct question that only children felt comfortable asking. James paused for a moment and Lisa tensed, wondering if this would be the moment that reminded him he was supposed to be on a date with just her. "No, I don't," James said honestly, "but I was a kid once just like you. I lived with my mom and it was just the two of us for a long time." Something in his tone caught Lisa's attention. There was a story there and she found herself curious to know more. "What happened to your dad?" Danny asked with the innocent bluntness that made Lisa want to crawl under the table sometimes. "Danny," Lisa said quickly, "that's a personal question." "It's okay," James said gently. "My dad left when I was about your age, Danny, so I know what it's like to have a mom who works really hard to take care of everything." Lisa felt her breath catch in her throat. She hadn't expected James to share something so personal, especially not with Danny. "My dad left too," Danny said matter-of-factly, "but it's okay because I have the best mom in the world." James smiled at Danny, then looked at Lisa with an expression she couldn't quite read. "I can see that," he said quietly. "My mom used to work 3 jobs sometimes," James continued, still talking to Danny but clearly including Lisa in the conversation. "She would come home really tired, but she always had time to help me with my homework or read me a story." "3 jobs?" Danny's eyes went wide. "That's a lot." "It is," James agreed. "But she did it because she loved me and wanted to make sure I had everything I needed. Just like your mom does for you." Lisa felt tears threatening to form and blinked them back quickly. She wasn't used to anyone understanding her situation, let alone praising her for it. Most people either judged her for being a single mom or treated her like she was somehow damaged goods. "Did you help your mom?" Danny asked, leaning forward with interest. "I tried to," James said. "I learned how to make peanut butter sandwiches when I was 7, and I always tried to keep my room clean so she wouldn't have to worry about it." "I help my mom too," Danny said proudly. "I can make my bed and put my toys away. And I don't ask for expensive things because I know money is, what's the word, Mommy? Tight," Lisa finished quietly, feeling embarrassed but also proud of her son's understanding. "Tight," Danny repeated. "Money is tight. But that's okay because we have fun anyway. We go to the library and the park and sometimes we have picnics in our living room." James nodded seriously. "Living room picnics are the best kind," he said. "My mom and I used to do that too. We'd spread a blanket on the floor and pretend we were camping." The waiter appeared to clear their plates and ask about dessert. Danny's eyes lit up at the mention of ice cream, but Lisa was already calculating in her head how much this dinner was costing. She had enough money for her portion of the meal, but dessert would definitely put her over budget. "Could we see the dessert menu?" James asked before Lisa could politely decline. "Actually," Lisa started to say, but James held up a gentle hand. "Please, he said. "Let me handle this. It's my treat." "I can't let you pay for everything," Lisa protested. "That's not fair." "Why not?" James asked. "I invited you to dinner, didn't I?" "Well, technically Kate invited me and told me to meet you here," Lisa said, which made James laugh. "Then consider it Kate's treat by proxy," he said. "Besides, I have a good feeling about this evening. I'd like it to last a little longer." Danny was already studying the dessert menu with the intensity of a scholar examining ancient texts. "They have chocolate cake," he announced, "and ice cream, and something called tiramisu." "Tiramisu is very fancy," James explained. "It's an Italian dessert with coffee flavor. Probably too grown-up for you." "I like grown-up food sometimes," Danny said thoughtfully. "Can I try a tiny bite?" "If your mom says it's okay," James said, looking at Lisa. Before Lisa could respond, Danny reached across the table for his water glass and knocked over his Coke in the process. The dark liquid spread across the white tablecloth and dripped onto James's expensive-looking pants. "Oh no," Danny gasped, his eyes filling with tears. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Lisa's heart sank. This was exactly the kind of thing she had been worried about all evening. She grabbed her napkin and started trying to clean up the spill, but the damage was already done. James's pants had a large dark stain on them and his shirt had gotten splashed too. "Danny, it's okay," Lisa said quickly, though she felt mortified. "Accidents happen." But Danny was already crying, the kind of quiet, guilty tears that broke Lisa's heart. "I ruined your nice clothes," he said to James. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." James, who had been calmly dabbing at his shirt with his napkin, immediately knelt down beside Danny's chair. "Hey, buddy, look at me," he said gently. "It's just clothes, see?" He gestured to his stained shirt. "It'll wash out. No big deal. But it's expensive," Danny sniffled. "Mommy says expensive things are important." "You know what's more important than expensive clothes?" James asked, his voice warm and patient. Danny shook his head, still sniffling. "Good friends and fun conversations and trying new foods like tiramisu," James said. "Those things are worth way more than any shirt." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a clean handkerchief, gently wiping Danny's tears. "Besides, now I have a good story to tell. The time I met the coolest 6-year-old dinosaur expert and he helped me realize that shirts are just shirts." Danny giggled despite his tears. "Really?" "Really," James confirmed. "In fact, I think this shirt looks better with a little character to it." The waiter had quietly appeared with extra napkins and a towel, helping to clean up the spill without making a fuss. Lisa noticed that James thanked him warmly and didn't seem embarrassed at all about the situation. "Can we still have dessert?" Danny asked tentatively. "Absolutely," James said, settling back into his chair as if nothing had happened. "I think this calls for extra ice cream, don't you?" As they waited for their dessert order, Lisa found herself studying James with new eyes. She had seen men get angry over far less than a spilled drink on expensive clothes. She had dated someone who complained when Danny accidentally left fingerprints on his car window. But James had handled the situation with such grace and kindness that it made her wonder what kind of person he really was, underneath the successful businessman exterior. "Thank you," she said quietly while Danny was distracted by the bustle of the restaurant around them. "For what?" James asked. "For being so understanding. About everything. This whole evening has been nothing like what either of us probably expected." James smiled. "You're right. It's been much better than what I expected." The dessert arrived and Danny's eyes went wide at the elaborate chocolate cake topped with fresh berries. James made sure he got his promised taste of tiramisu, which Danny declared weird but good, making both adults laugh. As the evening wound down, Lisa realized she felt more relaxed than she had in months. For a few hours, she had felt like a normal person having a normal dinner with friends, instead of a struggling single mom just trying to get through each day. As the restaurant began to quiet down for the evening, Lisa realized she had been having such a good time that she had completely forgotten to worry about getting home. Danny was starting to get sleepy, leaning against her arm while he finished the last bites of his chocolate cake. "What time does the last bus run?" James asked, seeming to read her thoughts. Lisa checked her phone and felt a small surge of panic. "The last bus to our neighborhood leaves in 20 minutes, she said. "We should probably get going." "Let me drive you home," James offered immediately. "Oh, you don't have to do that," Lisa said quickly. "The bus is fine. We take it all the time." "I know I don't have to," James said gently, I want to. Besides, Danny looks pretty tired and it's getting late. Danny perked up at the mention of his name. Are we going home now? He asked, rubbing his eyes. Yes, sweetie, Lisa said. Mr. James offered to give us a ride. In a real car? Danny asked, suddenly more awake. Not the bus? James laughed. In a real car. It's not very exciting, but it has air conditioning and comfortable seats. As James paid the check, despite Lisa's protests that she could at least cover her and Danny's portions, she found herself feeling sad that the evening was ending. It had been the most normal, enjoyable time she'd had in months. More than that, it had been wonderful to see Danny interacting with a kind adult male who treated him with respect and genuine interest. They gathered their things, and Danny carefully put his crayons back in his backpack. The hostess smiled warmly at them as they left, and Lisa noticed that the other diners weren't staring anymore. Somehow, over the course of the evening, they had stopped feeling like an awkward threesome and started feeling like a family out for dinner. James's car was parked just a block away. It was a nice sedan, clean but not flashy, the kind of car that spoke of success without trying to show off. He opened the back door for Danny and helped him with the seatbelt, then opened the passenger door for Lisa. This is really nice, Danny said from the back seat, running his hands over the smooth leather seats. It smells good too. Thank you, James said, adjusting the rearview mirror so he could see Danny. Where to, navigator? Danny giggled and gave James their address, proud to know it by heart. As they drove through the city, Danny kept up a steady stream of chatter about the buildings they passed, the traffic lights, and anything else that caught his attention. James responded to each comment with patience and genuine interest, never once seeming annoyed or tired of the constant questions. Lisa watched this interaction with growing amazement. In her experience, most adults barely tolerated children's endless curiosity, giving short answers or changing the subject, but James seemed to actually enjoy Danny's enthusiasm, asking follow-up questions and sharing his own observations about the city. Do you live in a big house? Danny asked as they turned into their neighborhood. Not too big, James said. Just big enough for me. What about you? Do you like your house? It's an apartment, Danny corrected, but it's cozy. Mommy says cozy is better than big if you don't have anyone to share it with. Lisa felt her cheeks warm at Danny's innocent observation. She had said that once when he asked why they didn't live in a house like some of his friends, trying to make their small apartment sound like a choice rather than a necessity. Your mommy is very wise, James said, glancing at Lisa with a smile. Cozy is definitely better. They pulled up in front of the modest apartment building where Lisa and Danny lived. It was an older building, well-maintained but clearly not upscale. Lisa felt self-conscious as James looked up at it, comparing it to the elegant restaurant they had just left. This is us, she said, unbuckling her seatbelt. James got out and came around to help Danny out of the car, then walked with them to the building entrance. The evening air was cool and comfortable, and Lisa found herself walking slowly, not wanting the night to end. I had a really great time tonight, James said as they reached the door. Both of you. Me too, Danny said immediately. Thank you for the pizza and ice cream, and for not being mad when I spilled on you. Thank you for teaching me about dinosaurs, James replied seriously. I learned a lot. Danny beamed at this acknowledgement of his expertise. I know lots of other stuff too, about space and animals and how cars work. I'd love to hear about those things sometime, James said, then looked at Lisa. If that would be okay with your mom. Lisa felt her heart skip a beat. You want to see us again? She asked, not quite believing it. Very much, James said. I was wondering if you two would like to go to the Natural History Museum next Saturday. I hear they have an excellent dinosaur exhibit. Danny's eyes went wide with excitement. Really? They have real dinosaur bones there? So I've heard, James said with a smile. What do you think, Lisa? Would that be something you'd both enjoy? Lisa looked down at Danny's hopeful face, then back at James's warm, sincere expression. 6 months ago, if someone had told her that she would meet a man who not only accepted her son, but actively wanted to spend time with both of them, she would have laughed. Yet here was James suggesting a second date that was clearly planned around Danny's interests. I think we'd love that, she said softly. Perfect, James said. I'll call you this week to work out the details. He knelt down to Danny's level for a final goodbye. Thank you for a wonderful evening, Danny. You're excellent company. Danny, emboldened by the evening's success, gave James a quick hug. "Thank you for being nice to my mom," he whispered, but loud enough for Lisa to hear. James looked surprised by the unexpected hug, but pleased. "Your mom is very easy to be nice to," he said. As they went inside and climbed the stairs to their apartment, Danny chattered excitedly about the museum and dinosaurs and Mr. James. Lisa half listened while her mind processed what had just happened. She had gone into the evening expecting disaster, and instead found herself looking forward to next weekend. Later, after Danny was asleep and Lisa was sitting on her couch with a cup of tea, she reflected on how dramatically her perspective had changed in just a few hours. She had spent so long believing that being a single mom meant she had to choose between her son and any possibility of romance. Tonight had shown her that maybe the right person wouldn't see Danny as an obstacle to overcome, but as part of what made her who she was. 3 months later, as Lisa watched James and Danny building a blanket fort in her living room while she made dinner, she thought back to that mortifying evening when she had brought her 6-year-old son on a blind date. She had been so embarrassed, so certain that she was ruining any chance of a normal relationship. Now she realized that bringing Danny that night had been the best thing she could have done. It had shown James exactly who she was and what her life looked like, without any pretense or attempt to hide the reality of single motherhood. His reaction had told her everything she needed to know about his character. James had become more than just her boyfriend. He was Danny's friend, her partner in the daily challenges of life, and the first person who had ever made her feel like her complete self. Mother, woman, and individual, was not only acceptable but cherished. Sometimes the most embarrassing moments, she had learned, turned out to be the most important ones of all.